Welcome back to Red Business in Focus with Cork's local enterprise offices, where we're shining the spotlight on local businesses in Cork and meeting the people who are taking the business world by storm. This week we've William Nolan from Additive in the hot seat. He's going to bring us through his business journey so far, explaining how his technology is solving problems for many industries. William, you are very welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thanks very much for having me.
We have met before as part of the Ignite program. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But as always, we give people 30 seconds to explain what the business does. In your case, I'm really interested to see how you do, because it's kind of complicated.
This could be tricky, yeah. So we're a design and manufacturing company. We specialize in additive manufacturing. What that's more commonly known as 3D printing. So we design and manufacture products here in Cork for any industry, any customer, any business, and our whole goal here is to digitize and localize supply chains.
Okay, good. Again, didn't need the 30 seconds, and I've kind of got a good grasp of it there now, right? So I'm going to stop the clock, and more importantly, I'm going to talk to you about your journey, because as I said, I first met you with the Ignite program through UCC, and then you went on to work with the local enterprise office. So how did you start the business idea?
Yeah, so I was working in industry for a good number of years as a manufacturing engineer in the med device industry. And then I went away, did my bit of years travelling, luckily just before the whole world shut down. And then decided while I was away I wanted to look at what was outside med devices in terms of this technology. It's very in its infancy in a lot of industries. So I came home, on the way home actually researching and looking at what was out there and what was available in terms of supports to get up and running. And that's where I first found the things like Ignite and local enterprise office, and just kind of went from there, applying for things that were out there and trying everything under the sun.
So you decided that there was a better way to do it, and you're going to be able to add value using 3D printing. So it's probably a world that is already populated with some big fish. So how did your little minnow decide to start swimming upstream?
Yeah, so you see, that's what you find with the technology, is that it's being driven and being grown by the big industries like medtech, automotive, aerospace. But outside of that, it's still very much an unknown entity. So a lot of other industries and smaller businesses aren't aware of what it can do. So they haven't been exposed to the capabilities. So that was my goal, is that we want to set this up, particularly for Irish businesses at the start, to show this technology is ready for production and we can make your products or components in a way that you never thought you could before.
So you're kind of looking to democratize this. So in other words, it's not just something for the big companies. If you have a small business, you should be able to benefit from this. What's the practical application for this though? What kind of businesses can use this type of adaptive technology?
Essentially anyone for the long and short of it. But what we're doing is we're looking at all industries in Ireland, particularly say pharma, medtech, industrial, automation, all of these indigenous companies, and particularly in the last 2 years, what we're focusing on is trying to localize their supply chains. And obviously with companies struggling to get products, be it plastic or metal components of any kind, like spare parts, consumables, fixtures, or if they're developing a product, typically they'll be sourcing these from a global supplier. So our goal here is that we'll design and develop them here in Ireland so they can get them locally, reduce lead times, reduce carbon footprint, reduce material waste with the machines that we use, and it essentially will benefit everyone in the long run.
Look, my understanding of 3D printing, it's great. It can produce all sorts of things, but it can be costly and it's not great on scale. So is that something you're looking to overcome, to convince companies that they can do things on scale, that they don't necessarily have to wait for 6 to 8 weeks for it to arrive in a ship?
That's it, exactly. And that point of it not being great at scale and volume this is where the technology is really starting to mature. So for example, if this was 5-10 years ago, the technology wouldn't be at a state in terms of commercial viability to allow businesses like me to scale it up, because it was still like the early days of computers where it's a massive system in a very enclosed room.
There's only one in a university.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're at the point where it's becoming more commercially viable, but the big problem there is there's still a huge knowledge gap. So people are still trying to learn what it can do and what materials they can do and how they design products, and that's where we really come in. So the machines we have set up now they're commercially available systems. They're not locked away in a room that only 1 or 2 people can get access to, but it's being able to use them in a production environment and knowing what to do to be able to scale it effectively.
What can it do? I mean, I suppose, is there a limit to the potential here, or can you just see every business that's involved in manufacturing or involved in process that can use this type of adaptive 3D printing to make their lives better, to make the product for their consumer more attractive?
That's it, and that's the whole point of this, is that it's actually transforming. Typically, like let's say for any industry, be it manufacturing or consumer industries, or products are being developed, because of changing behaviours from, let's say, a consumer, from a product point of view, the manufacturing landscape has to change to suit that as well. So rather than high volume push products out to markets, that we're now looking at a whole shift in manufacturing globally in terms of localized, distributed manufacturing, getting more customized products to suit people's needs. And be it that a consumer or a manufacturing business who comes to us, those needs are changing, and they change quite rapidly. So this is what the technology is enabling us to do.
So you've reached the point in your journey now where you are growing, you're engaging with more customers, you're showing them the value of what this technology is going to be. Where do you go next?
So the timing where we are now, obviously, we're scaling. We're growing a lot quicker than we had expected, particularly within the last 2 years, with the whole world being essentially shut down. This allowed us to show a lot of companies what we could do in an environment where they probably wouldn't have chosen to look at us before. So now we're scaling now at the minute, and we're in a fundraising round now at the minute to try and raise some seed funding to allow us to scale our team with our current processes and our current manufacturing equipment, and then allow us to get into more advanced metal development as well.
Okay, so really horizons unlimited.
Unlimited, yeah.
Yeah, so that it's a brilliant example of the journey of, you know, starting out in the university, then getting support from the local enterprise office, and now moving on to the seed funding.
That's it, yeah.
You're literally on the journey that so many others have done before.
And for me, it's fantastic to look back, because I can even remember sitting in China on a train journey, plotting out on my iPad about I'd do this and this was here and this is available, kind of the perfect logical step that you'd have to make. And looking back now after making all those steps, it's fantastic to see that progress.
William Nolan of Adaptive Design and Manufacturing, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Join us next week when we'll be chatting to Carol Feller of Stolen Stitches. That's a company that began in 2008 with a unique hand-knit design sold digitally. In 2017, they grew to include a new yarn line called Newa that was sold worldwide. She's going to bring us through her journey of growth. Looking forward to hearing that story. Join us next week for Red Business in Focus with Cork's local enterprise office.